Hi friends, so the lighting's terrible and I'm just using my hand to hold this, so it's going to be shaky, as often is the case in my vlogs, but I know if I don't do this now I'm going to forget. So it is technically the day before Victober is meant to start, September 30th, but tomorrow, the 1st of October, I will not have a ton of time to read. And I have a couple things that I'm reading sections of a day, so I want to make sure I am keeping up to date, not automatically getting behind on them. So I decided today to start my buddy read of Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy a little bit early, so I'm going to be reading the first 7 chapters of this today. I've already read the first almost 2 chapters. I'm literally on the last page of the 2nd chapter. I just was reading it during my short break at work today, and was able to get through that. Sorry about my voice. I wouldn't say I'm sick because I have nothing else going on. I think I've just been talking a lot more the past couple days between work and other things than usual, and so it's reacting in my throat. Plus I just had like a spicy ramen that also kind of bothers my throat. Anyway, so yes, I'm going to be reading this. I have so I'm in my little cushion right next to my bed that's not made, so sorry about that, but I have my little ambiance going and I'm going to read for a little bit. I do have a meeting for school with a team for one of my classes that I'll have to do. That shouldn't take very long. That'll be at 8 o'clock. It's just after 7 right now, so I got a little less than an hour to work on this, and my meeting with my team is over Microsoft Teams, so I don't have to go anywhere for it, so that's nice. But yes, happy Victober. I hope you guys had a great first day. I know by the time you'll see this, it will be well past the first day, probably will be closer to the middle of October, but I hope it's been a good month so far for you, and I will check in with you maybe tonight after I finish the first 7 chapters to share thoughts, or maybe in either tomorrow night or in a couple days to share wherever I'm at that point. Hey guys, I don't really have much of an update, although I did finish Jane Eyre and it was wonderful. It's the 1st of October, I should mention, and I finished Jane Eyre and it was so good. Definitely a great reread. But what I really wanted to come on here to say, I might talk more about Jane Eyre later, but I just think I saw, I don't know if it was a cougar or what, but it was definitely a not normal sized cat walking past our apartment. I mean, like our apartment building, and there's like a fence. It's in front of me, so I can't show you it very easily right now, but anyway, it's like a fence, and then on the other side of the fence is like kind of a wild area, I guess, that doesn't have any buildings built on it. And I think that a black mountain lion just passed. It was black, but it was definitely bigger than a normal cat. So anyway, that was really cool, and I just wanted to document it. So anyway, I will catch up with you later. Hey guys, so what would my vlog be without bad lighting and no makeup on? Anyway, it's been a few days since I updated you, and I know in my last clip I briefly mentioned that I finished Jane Eyre while I was freaking out over the cougar that I saw. So anyway, Jane Eyre, yes, I finished it and it was great. Definitely a great one to reread, especially because I did like it better this time, which was really awesome. I definitely see the hype better for it. I mean, in the past I did still enjoy it. I just didn't love it as much as a lot of people did, but I'm able to get behind it now. I really love Jane as a character. I love Charlotte Bronte's writing style. I love the gothic atmosphere in that story. And I actually like Mr. Rochester. I don't think I would necessarily want to, be with him myself, but I think he is a really interesting character, and I appreciate what he offers Jane. Even though he's very flawed, I do think he ends up growing a lot through his ordeal, and I think it's hard for us to really recognize his growth because we're seeing everything from Jane's perspective, and we're not able to be with him through a lot of his growth, especially after Jane leaves. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but after Jane leaves due to circumstances, we don't see what goes on with him because we're in Jane's head. So I think it's hard for us to really grasp how he's grown through his experiences, and so I think I am a little bit more forgiving of him than other people are. I mean, he's still definitely not great, but I do like him more than I think some people do. Anyway, sorry, I know this is an awkward angle, but it's just the most comfortable way for me to hold my arm right now. So anyway, I just read a huge chunk of Jude the Obscure. I am about halfway through it. From reading it over the past few days. I really need to share more solid thoughts with Emily, who I'm from Novell Novels, who I'm reading this with, because mostly we've just been like back and forth, like, are we reading to this chapter? Yeah, that's where we're reading to. Okay, cool. And that's all we've really said. I know she was not super into it for a while, but it sounds like she's getting more into it, so that's good. But I need to like share more actual thoughts with her on this. But I'm liking this a lot. I definitely think you can tell that this is one of Hardy's later novels because it's so well written. It's very well written. The plotting is really good, very engaging. I really love the character development going on in this. I think, I don't know, because I do see the quality of this book, but I don't really care much for Jude. I feel like Jude, I honestly think it's interesting that Katie from Books and Things loves this book so much. Only because Jude reminds me of a little bit of the main character in The Well Beloved, also by Hardy, which Katie from Books and Things hates. She hates that book. And she loves this one, and I just feel like they have very similar tendencies, and I'm not totally sure why she dislikes Well Beloved versus likes this one. I need to rewatch her videos on both of them, which she did a few years ago. She did like a couple week long, every day did a brief review of each book in order of her ranking, and this was number 1, and that one was number 14, I believe, the last one. It was the last one anyway. I can't remember if, I'm pretty sure he wrote 14 novels, but anyway, that all being said, yeah, he kind of reminds me of the main character in The Well Beloved, which I don't really like. That's my least favorite Hardy. But I find the main female character in this really interesting, Sue. She reminds me a little bit of Bathsheba, but with less vanity and more of just a different kind of pride, I think. And she's really interesting. I really like her a lot. It's definitely a very gloomy book. It hasn't made me tear up or anything, unlike Tess, which by this point in the book definitely makes me cry. So I find it interesting that people say this book is more tragic than Tess, because I feel like Tess, I cry at the beginning, in the beginning portion, and at the end, not just, and really throughout it. There's a lot going on, and I feel like in this, like, I feel bad for Jude, but I also feel like a lot of his struggles he could just deal with better. And I think what I like about Tess is going through hard things that are really hard, and like it's almost impossible for her to really get over them, like to live beyond them, because society won't let her. But she does her best, at least for a good chunk of the book, find her own way to make some sort of life for herself, and she finds contentment where she's put, because she knows that she just, like, there's not many options for her, and so she is willing to seek out some sort of happiness. Even if she feels like she'll never truly be fully happy, she will at least seek out what she can. And I feel like Jude, on the other hand, is just kind of being sad for himself all the time without doing anything about it, and without really seeking contentment. He's just being sad. And so I think I'm having a hard time with this because of that, but at the same time, like, I'm really liking it. Like, I definitely think the plotting is really interesting, and a lot of the conversations had between Jude and Sue are really interesting, very thought-provoking. And I don't know, I find it interesting that this is one of Hardy's last novels too, just because there is this sense of like him slowly giving up hope in a lot of his novels, but I feel like this one feels very hopeless, but in a way where you as the reader, like I said, know that Jude, for example, could find contentment in some way. He could, you know, really dig deep inside of himself and find joy in architecture. Like, he is learning about architecture and he's learning about stonemasonry and things like that because he wants to have some sort of profession to help him. And instead of like really diving into that and seeing what joy he can find in that, he just treats it as such a temporary thing, and yet he has no other plans for his future beyond like wishful thinking. And he's just very much like not coping well with his struggles, and I feel like he could do so much more to better himself, better his situation, and yet he's not doing them. I don't hate this book as much as Kate Howe did. I know Kate Howe had similar feelings about Jude's situation, but to me it's more thought-provoking, and I appreciate the story itself enough, and I appreciate other characters like Sue enough to make this a more enjoyable read than it would be if it really just focused on Jude being sad, if that makes sense. Anyway, so yeah, I'm enjoying it, basically. It's definitely not going to take place as my favorite Hardy. It honestly probably won't be my second favorite or anything like that. It will probably be somewhere in the middle if I were to guess right now. It is really good. The quality is really good, and I'm glad to be reading it. Right now it's a little after 9, so not terribly late, but late enough that in the next hour and a half, I'll probably start thinking about going to bed. But I need to read some of the Lancashire Witches. How is that going, you may ask? I am loving that. It is very dramatic, very, very dramatic, but it's what I wanted, and especially like reading Jude and the professor, some of those more common types of Victorian literature, like what you picture when you think about Victorian literature, is kind of more of those, I don't want to say domestic, because definitely Jude is more like a tragic story, but you know, like that kind of living life, kind of contemporary literary fiction style of book is what I usually picture when it comes to Victorian literature. So it's nice to have a gothic, melodramatic, historical fiction, supernatural historical fiction type story. That's the Lancashire Witches. I will say the accents are really hard to read, very hard to read, but I'm making do. I at least can understand them enough to know what's going on, and like I said, it's very dramatic. Like I've read maybe like 40-50 pages, and someone's already died a bloody death. A couple people have died really dramatic deaths, and there's been witchcraft and revenge. There was one scene that kind of gave me Count of Monte Cristo vibes. And it's been great so far, so I will keep you updated on that as well. Tomorrow I will start my audiobook for Wuthering Heights, which should be good. I'm excited about that. And yeah, I will update you in the next couple of days. I'm not totally sure how regularly to update this because I don't want my vlog to be terribly long. Like, this clip is already over 10 minutes, but I do want to keep you updated pretty regularly. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. Hopefully I'll have better lighting in other clips, but yeah, so that's the update for now, and I will check in with you whenever I decide to. Hi friends, so it's a couple days later, and I thought I would film. I've been filming a video about Thomas Hardy just barely, so I thought while I was sitting here and there's decent lighting as opposed to my nighttime lighting, my common evening lighting, I would give you a quick update. So I am nearly done with Jude the Obscure. I think I will probably finish it today. Emily has already finished it. She ended up giving it about 4 stars. She's still debating as of right now, but probably about 4 stars, she said. So she enjoyed it pretty well. I know the beginning was pretty slow for her, but she ended up liking it a lot. Honestly, at this point, I'd probably also agree on a 4-star read. It's pretty good. It's just, I like other Hardy novels better, but I think I will try. I was planning on finishing it tomorrow, but I think I am going to try to finish it tonight and just not read the Lancashire Witches tonight and just read extra of that tomorrow, if that makes sense. There's only about 80 pages left that I need to read, so a good amount. It will take me some time, but I actually have quite a bit of time tonight because I'm almost done with my homework. I just have a couple more things to do. I wanted to film this video before the good lighting went away, so that's why I paused for a second, but got a little bit of homework left, and then after that I pretty much am good for the night. I will be doing a little bit of like a religious study night just because I want to incorporate more that more into my week. So I'll probably do at least 30 minutes of that is my goal. I want to start with 30 minutes once a week to just focus in. I mean, every night before bed I read scriptures, but I would like to do a little bit more deep dive study into some other religious books I have that I have not read yet. So anyway, beyond that, I don't have any other plans tonight, which I think will be really nice because I've been so tired the past couple weeks. I don't know what it is. I think part of it is compared to last year, I'm working a lot more hours, and on top of that, my classes, while I have less credit hours for school, there's still enough that the amount of work I'm doing is more than replacing that extra few credit hours for school that I had last year. So I think that's making a difference. And also the classes I'm taking, they're not super time consuming, but they're a little, I don't know, there's something about them that's just a little harder, and maybe part of it is I'm kind of dealing with some senioritis, not going to lie, as I'm getting closer and closer to graduating with at least my undergrad. So I think I'm just kind of getting a little bit of senioritis, so I'm struggling a lot more to want to do schoolwork. Anyway, that's a little side tangent, but basically it will be really nice to have a night where I can focus for a lot more time on reading. And then I may end up picking up the Lancashire Witches. I guess I'll give you an update on how I'm feeling on that right now. It's still pretty good. It started off with an introduction, and so the first several chapters were an introduction that basically explored what was in the synopsis. So it was the exploration of clergymen and this huge rebellion against Henry VIII, King Henry VIII, and how this leads to these two clergymen kind of going head to head, and one of them ends up being executed, and before he's executed he curses the progeny of the descendants of the other clergymen to be witches. And so then this next chapter, this next section moves forward in time a lot. So we are out of the Tudors and into the reign of James I. And so it's been a few generations. However, the daughter of that original clergyman is still alive. She's a old lady, and she is Mother Demdike, and she is the like leader of these witches. I mean, we guess that based on the synopsis and what's happened so far, you can guess that. But it hasn't directly, actually, she hasn't even come on page yet, so that's kind of interesting. We've been focusing on a May Day celebration, and one of the descendants of this cursed clergyman, there's two sisters that are kind of the most recent generation, and one's beautiful and sweet and just an angelic figure, and the other one is like her mother and grandmother before her, where she's, you know, a little deformed, and she has a little bit more of a malicious tendency to her. It's really interesting because actually they even changed the dialect of these two sisters, where the pretty angelic sister speaks pretty normally. She has a much more formal and noble way of speaking, whereas the younger sister, the one who's more witchy, has more of a Lancashire accent. I will say the Lancashire accents are pretty tricky to read, and there's going to be more of them than I kind of expected, which will be interesting, but the more I read them, the easier it is to read them, so I definitely have gotten better at that, and it's not as distracting as it was before, so that's good. So yeah, really enjoying that. I also started Wuthering yesterday, and I'm really loving the audiobook for that. It is narrated by, I think her name's Joanne Froggatt or something, but she plays Anna in Downton Abbey, if you watch that. So she's a wonderful actress, and it's really fun to listen to, especially because Nellie Dean is the one telling the story technically in the book, and that actress is really able to inflect and provide that accent in a way that you really feel like Nellie Dean is telling you the story. So I'm really, really liking the audiobook for that, and I'm loving that book. I know I said I can't remember if it was in this or in a different video of mine, but I've mentioned that I thought Jane Eyre was beating out Wuthering Heights, but I don't know. We'll have to see how Wuthering Heights goes, because I love Wuthering Heights so much, and I think I do like it better than Jane Eyre, but it's really close. It's really close. I just think with Jane Eyre, I love Jane as a character, but all the other characters, while I like them a lot, it is more focused on Jane. Like, Jane is the primary focus of that story. And so I don't feel as connected with a lot of the other characters, including Mr. Rochester. While I like Mr. Rochester a lot, actually, I mean, I think he's not great. That he uses a lot of gaslighting against Jane, and he's just not a very good man, and he's pretty abusive psychologically. I think that he also has a lot about him that is intriguing, and I'm like, frankly, there are moments where I do find him a little bit attractive. I'm not gonna lie. But on the whole, I don't like him. I have a lot more interest in Heathcliff than I do in Rochester. And so I think that makes a difference. And then, yeah, there's something about Wuthering Heights. I love it so much. I still love Jane Eyre a lot. And I'm going to wait till I get to the end of Wuthering Heights to officially decide which of those two I like better. But suffice it to say, I'm really liking Wuthering Heights so far. But anyway, that is my update for now. I thought this would be shorter than the last one, but they never are. So anyway, I'm going to finish Jude the Obscure, and I may update you tonight or tomorrow, depending on how life goes, about how I ended up feeling about it. And yeah, we'll just see you in the next clip. So, I knew people said that this book was even more tragic than Tess. And for a while, I wasn't saying it. I don't even know how to react. That was so much more intense than I thought it was going to be. Like, how has nobody talking about this book really shown how freaking dark this gets? Like, I don't even know where it's gonna go from here. Like, I seriously, I don't even know how to react, but I had to get on camera while my emotions are high, and I'm just, what? Are you kidding me? Like, okay. I feel I shouldn't laugh, but I'm like literally in shock that it went the direction it went. I'm talking about Jude the Obscure, by the way, if you didn't pick up on that. I literally have only been reading for like 20 minutes since I last updated you, so it happened really fast after my last update. I don't know what this is gonna do to my rating, but I had to capture on video how speechless and shook I am. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. Oh my gosh. I'm surprised Emily didn't, she finished earlier today. She's 7 hours ahead of me, time-wise, so she finished and didn't say anything about how intense this got. Okay, anyway. We're just gonna keep reading. I'll update you more later. Hey guys, so it is Monday the 11th. Please forgive my slightly disheveled look. I've been ridiculously tired today. I'm not totally sure why. I am on my period and that always wipes me out. And then I worked this morning and then I had a lot of schoolwork to get done because I have fall break this weekend starting this Thursday. And I'm trying to get as much of my homework done before then as possible. And today was kind of a day where I had just a little extra time after work to do things. And so I planned a lot of stuff, which was great. I got a lot done, but it did exhaust me on top of, my period exhausting me. I feel like I haven't been sleeping super great recently. I got to bed at a decent time last night, but my roommates were chatting and giggling, not until super late, but just late enough that I didn't get as much sleep as my body would prefer. And it's storming right now, which I love for ambiance purposes. I really like to see it, but it does tend to exhaust me when storms come in. I don't know if you feel that way, but I know there's electrical signals in the air when storms come in that can cause people to get tired. So I definitely feel that right now. But because it's been a few days, I was like, you know what, I really need to update you on final thoughts on Jude to start off with. So yes, I completed Jude the Obscure and I definitely really enjoyed it. I gave it about 4 out of 5 stars, maybe a little bit higher than a 4. It definitely, quality-wise, like objectively, it's a really good book. It's definitely Hardy's best, most well written. You can definitely tell it's his last novel because the writing is so good, but the story itself just wasn't totally my cup of tea. I just felt that Jude was very much a complainer, and to some extent I understood where he was coming from, and I really appreciated his relationship with Sue. I thought it was really interesting, but there were just so many things that I felt like he could be making his life better by having a different attitude. I'm sorry, he just had a really bad attitude about everything, and as soon as something came up in his way, as soon as there was a bit of trouble, he just crumpled instantly. And it was really frustrating to me, especially because I couldn't help but compare this with Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which is Hardy's other great work and other great tragedy. And in Tess, I feel like Tess herself, even though she has an awareness that maybe she can't reach the goal she wanted to due to circumstances, she still seeks out ways to make herself content, to find some level of contentment. She doesn't just sit and wallow. And I just feel like Jude has a wallowing problem, and it got really frustrating to read about in some ways. But that being said, again, I really like his relationship with Sue. I found that really interesting. A lot of the discussion around marriage, even though I didn't totally agree with it, it did make me think a lot, and I really appreciated that. Like you saw, there is a part in this that definitely threw me for a loop and just was super dark and intense. So, you know, be aware going into this that it's not just tragic. There's something that's like super dark that happens in this book. Anyway, so it was really good. It was just not great as far as the story itself, but it was definitely a great way to kick off Victober along with Jane Eyre, of course, because I really enjoyed both of them. I had a great time. And now I'm still working on the Lancashire Witches, and I have a few more thoughts than I feel like I have had so far on this. So I'm a little over 100 pages. I'm actually close to 200 pages through. I should get to page 200 actually tonight, but I am liking this still. It just is it's very plot focused to the point where I feel like it's jumping around plot points so much, and I'm almost 200 pages into it. And I mean, things are still happening, but it's almost like I just don't understand what the overall plot is going to be still. Like, I'm getting a sense of it, but because things are happening so fast, this book is pretty long. It's 550 pages. And yet I'm not totally sure what's gonna propel us through 550 pages just because so much is happening so fast, if that makes sense, and reveals are happening really fast, which makes me question if these reveals are actually true. I have a feeling that there's more to these revelations than what they're thinking right now, which is intriguing, but also, again, there's kind of a level of me having a hard time feeling motivated to read it, at least the past couple days, just because I don't understand where it's leading to, if that makes sense, but I'm also still pretty engaged in it. I will say the character development in here is interesting because I feel like there's more character development than I expected from this book. I expected it to be very focused on supernatural aspects and creepiness and just focused on that, but they're actually developing the characters pretty well in a pretty interesting way. On BookTube, we talk a lot about the angelic woman in Victorian literature versus the evil woman, or people with deformities being seen as evil, and that definitely is very present in this book, so be aware if that's something that kind of grates on your nerves. That is very much in this. The deformed ones are the witches, and then there's this beautiful angelic girl who it sounds like they're going to try to tempt her. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting right now. But it is definitely creepy, dark, intense. Again, there's a lot going on in this book. And it makes me concerned, again, about the length because so much is happening so fast that maybe it's going to hit a dry spot at some point. But as of right now, It's a lot. Every time I read it, I read 20 pages a day. So not much at all, but every single day something intense happens. So it's really great. And I think it's fun that I'm reading it throughout the month, because I think if I'm ever bored with anything that I'm reading, like the book I'm going to mention in a second that I feel like I may get bored with, but we'll see. But anyway, if I end up being bored with anything, I'll always know I have this to come back to, and that it's gonna be dramatic and intense and supernatural and dark and just great. Yeah, the witchiness is on point in this book. It's not beating around the bush on the witches at all. It's definitely going into like demons, and they have pointed hats. They literally have pointed hats. They talk about flying on broomsticks, and they have their familiars. There's a black cat. It's literally classic witches, and I'm just loving it. And it's set in the time of, well, the beginning part is during Henry VIII's reign, and it all kicks off with the dissolution of the monasteries, and then we skip ahead a couple generations to James the First. And so great time period for all of this. It's just really great. We have a lawyer who wants to hunt witches, and yeah, it's just a lot of great things. Again, the length, because of how fast things are going, the length is my only concern, and it's making me like have a hard time feeling motivated to read it just because I don't know where we're going. But in and of itself, it's really fun so far. So hopefully I'll continue to like it. And I think I mentioned this before, the accents at first were pretty hard to read, but I'm getting used to them, and it's getting a lot easier to read them and understand what they're saying. So it took a little bit of time, but I'm getting there, and it's going great. Other thing I've been working on, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, listening to the audiobook for this, and oh my goodness. There was a moment when I was listening to Jane Eyre, and I still love Jane Eyre, don't get me wrong. There was a moment where I thought, maybe I like Jane Eyre better than Wuthering Heights, but coming back to this, I'm like, nope, I do like Wuthering Heights better. I love Jane Eyre, don't get me wrong, a lot. It's 5 stars, used to be 4 stars. This reread was perfect to bring it up to a 5-star read, new favorite for sure. But I just love Wuthering Heights. It's just so haunting. Heathcliff and Cathy are so awful, and it's just a delight to read. The thing I'm going to start today, I took a couple days off of reading anything besides those two just because I was feeling a little tired. I wanted to just watch a movie, to be honest, the other day. And I think tonight I've been watching How to Train Your Dragon today, which is not Victorian at all, but I've just been in the mood, and I'm about halfway through that, so I'm probably gonna finish that tonight, and then I'll get into my reading. But I do want to start The Professor. Now this one, I really don't know how I'm gonna feel. I don't expect to love it, which makes it hard to go into, but I want to read it at some point. So at some point I'm just going to have to like push myself through it so I can read all the Bronte novels. I've heard good things about this, don't get me wrong, but I've also heard a lot of not great things about it, so I don't have a lot of hope, especially after my experiences with both Shirley and Villette. Even though I enjoyed Villette pretty well by the end, I didn't love it as nearly as much as the other Bronte novels, so I'm wary going into this, but I need to do it. I'm planning on reading at least 3 chapters a day. That way I'll finish it by next week, which isn't much, I know, but I probably will honestly get through a good chunk this weekend because it's fall break, like I mentioned. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday I'll be really busy all day with other activities. Friday I'll have some things as well, but Friday afternoon through Saturday, I'm planning to just focus on Victober, filming, reading. I might go to the used bookstore. That will be in actually the next vlog. I'm planning to finish this vlog before then. But yes, so hopefully I'll be able to finish The Professor then, and get started on Gothic Tales. That's my plan right now. I'm hoping to update you at least one more time before I finish this vlog over the next few days. So yeah, we're just gonna go to that point, and I will check in with you when I have more thoughts on something. Hey guys, so it is a couple days later, and I have decided to just stop the vlog here just because I don't have a ton left to say. I need to get this up in the next couple of days, and tomorrow being Thursday, I'm going to be out all day, so I'm not going to have a chance to get it uploaded. So I'm going to need to do it tonight. It's Wednesday the 13th. So that's what I'm going to do. I will, just to kind of give my final thoughts, still enjoying Lancashire Witches, still enjoying Wuthering Heights. I don't have any additional thoughts on those quite yet. I will say I have started The Professor. I'm only a few chapters in, but I am enjoying it more than I thought I would. It's just different from what I expected. So I'm curious to see how the rest of the book goes, if I end up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. So we'll see how it goes. I will let you know. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know down below if you've read any of the books I've mentioned in this video, your thoughts on anything I mentioned. Sorry it wasn't the most exciting vlog. Hopefully the next one will be more exciting, as I'll be doing a little bit more, at least in the first few days of the second half of the month. So anyway, I will see you then.